Hola, por favor, and welcome, my fellow ruminators, to another episode of Red's Random Ruminations, where high IQ meets low brow. I'm Red, defender of liberty, speaker of truth, and purveyor of common sense. Thank you for joining, and now that you're here, let's pluba. Alright, this is video number 6 in the Charlie Kirk investigation. And once again, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking.
Can I ask you a question? As long as it's not about my eye. Is it about my eye?
Sort of.
Just ask the question.
What's with the eye?
Yeah, story for another time. I need to get this done as quick as possible. I need to make it as short as possible to get this information out there. This episode deals with the evidence, and just the evidence. This here is the introduction. I have amalgamated a series of previous videos that deal with the actual evidence of the shooting itself, starting off with the human skull. The skull is key to forensically and ballistically figuring out what happened to Charlie Kirk, starting with an analysis of the skull of a former president, John F. Kennedy, e.g., why JFK's bullet exited his skull and Charlie didn't. Then it goes into what the official narrative says versus what actually happened. Next, I will discuss what happened to Charlie by an analysis of what happened to him ballistically via ballistics gel and a real-life evolutionary example from the animal kingdom. It will show how and why it was a smaller caliber bullet than a .30-06, likely being a .556 NATO caliber or its sister caliber, a .223, or perhaps even a .22-250. This video explains everything. The cavitation, the bulging of the front and back of the shirt, the snapping of his necklace, the decorticate posturing, the neck wound, the massive amount of blood coming out of his neck, and yet, why was there little to no blood on members of his security team? This explains
everything. Everything.
It explains where the shot originated from, the tour building to Charlie's right, a building that supposedly couldn't be accessed by anyone other than faculty and staff, though it is my understanding that sleuths such as Ian Carroll and Gary from Paramount Tactical were on said roof, but I cannot say either way with any certainty. An inaccessible building would certainly add to the narrative if no one without credentials could have been on that roof that day, but it is not necessary to prove my case. Regardless, not only are you about to see the actual footage of the shooter appearing on that very roof at the very moment the shot rings out, but how a guy halfway around the world corroborates my evidence with science. Audio Freak, spelled audio-freq as in audio frequency, kind of a nice little play on words there, a pun if you will. Actually, it's probably not a pun, it's probably something different. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Oh, and that's another thing. Now that this case is solved and I don't need the comment section kept free, you guys can comment all you want because, like I said, you'll see, I figured it out. I don't need any more information regarding this. Audio Freak is a sound engineer trained in this exact discipline. After weeks of testing, he independently corroborated my theory of the shot placement. He doesn't put the shot's origin coming from the crowd. He doesn't put the shot's origin coming from a tree or some random spot, halfway up a building somewhere. His analysis pinpoints the exact location where my forensics and ballistic tests pinpoint the shot's origin to be. You can see Audio Freak's appearance on the Trigger Smart channel, which I implore you to go visit both their channels and support them. You can see them on Trigger Smart's channel, which is where some of these stills in this video that you're about to see come from. But I do have to mention that I have sent communique to multiple channels and sleuths. I have sent messages to Candace Owens, Baron Coleman, Trigger Smart, Valhalla VFT, Mindy Robinson, Ian Carroll, Jimmy Dore, Wolves of Finance, Brandy and Bailey, Sean Atwood, and I guess I'll have to unzip. Don't want to break the camera. Audio Freak. Only Sean and Audio Freak have replied so far. I have been on Sean's channel before. We've done work in the past. But literally the day that this information came together for me and that I was able to begin working on it, the Joffrey Derpstein files dropped. Gotta keep off of the YouTube. What do they call them? Oh, I did not see that coming. I messaged Sean about a possible three-way between me and Audio Freak. Perhaps I should proofread that a little bit better. Whoops. Not that kind, no. Can't. I know you guys probably think I did. I don't swing that way. Wish I did. I asked Audio Freak if he could confirm that location, which he alluded to was the. I asked Audio Freak if he could confirm that location, which he alluded to was the only possible place for the bullet to originate. He said he could not do that yet. He is a scientist, and as a scientist, any of his grants, assuming he gets some, I don't know if he receives any funding that he may get, and his reputation are dictated by the use of the scientific method. As a scientist, your method in turn dictates your conclusions. Your conclusions are everything when you're a scientist. For example, if I lived in Los Angeles and I asked 100 men between the ages of 15 and 30 if they liked surfing, and 60% answered that they liked surfing, and my conclusion was that 60% of all men worldwide liked surfing, that would be bad science. COVID.
Dr. Brinkman, we believe that the purpose of science is to serve mankind. You, however, seem to regard science as some kind of dodge or hustle. Your theories are the worst kind of popular tripe, your methods are sloppy, and your conclusions are highly questionable. You are a poor scientist, Dr. Brinkman.
I see.
No one would hire a scientist with such fallible methods. Not past the first couple of jobs, anyway. Remember that sign language interpreter? For that event where President Barack Obama spoke and the interpreter was horrendously unreliable? Sure, he got to be the sign language interpreter for a sitting U.S. president. Once. That's a hell of a check mark to have on your resume. With all that fallout and negative international exposure, I guarantee you he hasn't had many job offers afterwards. So I get and concur with Audio Freak's stance. I agree with the stance for not agreeing to come on Sean Atwood's show with me at this time. He has many more tests to run before he can definitively say where the shot came from. I promised him that I would tell the audience here where his analysis stands as of this recording. That the result that he had gathered so far is that he has finally found a shooting location that has passed all of the initial tests and that has thus far not been eliminated. That's the key phrase. Thus far has not been eliminated. And I'll quote, "I'm continuing to test and constrain the audio carefully, precisely because I want whatever conclusion eventually emerges to be robust and hard to argue with. When, and only when, that process is complete, the conclusions will speak for themselves." End quote. Again, I concur with that stance. And with stakes being this high, and with troglodyte sleuths with lots of subscribers waiting to pounce on facts and dry hump them until they bleed, I would wait too. I also show you the ballistics test that I ran on the gel dummy bust and the coyote head, further proving my point. Then I do a recap of the shot itself, the effects of the shot, and then I show the footage of the shooter on the roof taking the actual shot. This, along with Audio Freak's placement of the shot exactly where I stated, on that roof of the Tours Building, it illustrates how they sync up perfectly. This is all but one piece irrefutable. If Audio Freak's completed analysis winds up pointing to a location other than the roof of the Tours Building, I will donate $20 to the charity of his choice. Now, if you think $20 is cheap, well, my grandfather could squeeze the piss out of a buffalo nickel. But the real reason is I don't have any funds. I'm the Philo Farnsworth of this case. Look him up. He invented the television set. Did you know that? Of course you didn't. RCA stole his patent. But he said when he was watching the moon landing, he looked at his wife and said, "Pam, this has made it all worthwhile." I don't know if I'd really say that myself, but yeah, he died not penniless, but not rich. Anyway, I've solved this case. But look at my stats. I can't click particular thumb-shaped or church gong buttons in order to improve that situation or offer sponsorships to myself. But guess who can? I am literally now one single piece of physical evidence away from proving this case beyond any doubt. Not reasonable doubt, beyond any doubt in a court of law. All right, and in turn helping to set a young innocent fur-yiffer Patsy free. But I can't do this unless you guys share my videos and this information to the world. Now what I really need is to get this information in front of Candace Owens. Why? Given her history with the now highly questionable organization, Toilet Paper United States of America, I think she may be the only one with the actual connections enough to get a Charles Ebersole to acquire this last piece of physical evidence before it disappears forever. Of course, the day I'm set to release this, she'll be on vacation for a week. Boy, I'll have to tell you the story about when I went... liberal white women. Anyway, of course, I said already. I pray that our tribalism and our apathy hasn't squandered this one last opportunity to put the nail in the coffin of the person or persons who put the nail in Charlie's. Please share this. It's not monetized. I'm not making any money off of it. We just need to get this out there. I've done all I can. The rest is up to you.
I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you.
And now, your feature presentation. Roll it.
Now, what one of the detectives said, and this is key. This is absolutely key to this entire thing. And what made me realize, this changed my entire opinion on the Kennedy assassination. And when I watched it again with this information, I'm going to give you this information. You can go watch it yourself. But the head, the skull, is basically... Let's get Tula here. The skull is basically a pressurized unit. Not pressurized like an AC or coolant system, but basically, and it's pretty hard to get through something through this, right? Obviously a bullet traveling fast because mass equals force equals mass times acceleration. As long as it's going fast, you'll get through there, all right? And so if a bullet goes through your head, everything, just like the snow on the shovel, has to go somewhere. And this is like a giant pressurized balloon. Has to go somewhere. And I just watched today, can't think of the guy's name, Copper Kaya. Even he said, he said, federal agents have seen people shot, and usually they're shot in the head just explodes. Yeah, it does. That's what this detective said, which is why that shot with the .264 Winchester Magnum just splattered his brains and blood everywhere. So that's key. This thing is pressurized. All right. Now, regarding this information and then the Kennedy assassination. Okay. So, let me use Bob here. All right. We've all seen the movie JFK. Back and to the left. Back and to the left. I'm trying to keep this clean so I won't tell you a story from college, but maybe in the next video. So, back and to the left. All right. Oh, he was shot from the front. Well, there's another video, hopefully I'll link it, talking about what happened. So he was shot from the back. Oh, but the fatal blow came from the front. Wow, just like they're saying now. No, it did not. It came from the back. The first shot hit him right about here in the neck back area. That's why he goes like this. I believe that's when Governor Connolly laid his back and says they're going to kill us all. And then he gets the shot. So if you watch the Zapruder's tape, it's frame 313. Okay, so frame 311, frame 312, frame 313. All right, let's see, which way do we want to do that? Frame 13, you see him get hit. Well, actually, you'd be looking at it this way. Frame 13, you see him get hit. Okay, and back into the left. So basically, you see this. You actually see the exit splatter. And again, this is simple physics. All right, look with your eyes. Right, all these experts, just like the COVID experts, doing all this and that. Look with your eyes. Look at nature. What does nature do? What happens? Entry wound, there's the size of the bullet. Exit wound explodes because all of what's in front of it has to go somewhere. And especially in this nice little pressurized item here. Now, a watermelon is so soft, all right, it blows up. It starts blowing up this way first, but it cracks everywhere, okay? The bullet came in, and if I remember correctly, it said, right, the occipital protuberance right here, that bump at the back of your neck, okay, it was a centimeter to the right. So here it is, centimeter to the right and a little bit up. Okay, so what we're looking at is a quadrant. I got this and this. So essentially add another line from the suture here. Okay, sorry about the lighting. Again, I don't know my studio, I was done. So you got a quadrant here. So we're talking about front and back, left and right. We're only concerned about the right for now. It enters here, and if you go and look online, you can find autopsy pictures of the hole in Kennedy's head. And then they also, and of course I can't find it because, oh, I want to say another thing, is that Spike TV murder. I looked at it and tried to see if I could find the episode. They don't exist. But it was Spike TV and all that was bought out by CBS Paramount. So CBS Paramount owns Spike TV and the show Murder. So especially after I say this, it'll probably never see the light of day because I know that goes to the conspiracy. It's Jews. What is his name? Ellison, Larry Ellison. So yeah, Larry Ellison and them own this footage. Okay, but back to the JFK. All right, goes in on the right quadrant, right back here, right next to the occipital protuberance. Okay, and shatters everything out the right side. It explodes out. Exit wound, entry wound, size of the caliber. This explodes out from this pressurized vessel.
The major controversy surrounding President Kennedy's autopsy is the location of the head entry wound. The official autopsy report places the entry wound about 2.5 centimeters to the right and slightly above the external occipital protuberance, which is the bump in the back of your head, which is represented right here on the X-ray. One of the things that happens when a bullet strikes the skull is it sends off these radiating primary fractures that you can follow back down to the entry point. As the head expands, it causes these concentric heaving fractures that occur perpendicular to the primary fractures. Using this pattern, you can backtrack to the location of the entry wound. Several of the investigative committees that were set up by the government placed the location of the entry wound much higher up on the top of the head. If that were the case, this would be the fracture pattern that we would see. We'd see the primary fracture lines radiating downwards with the concentric fractures circling back up to locate the entry wound at the top of the head. If we compare these two images with President Kennedy's head X-ray, which is down here, you can see these primary fractures going upwards in this direction, telling you that the entry wound is down low. We also have these secondary heaving fractures that occur as the head expands, also pointing to an entry wound that's down low. So if we compare the two possibilities, the autopsy described fracture pattern versus the investigative committee fracture pattern, you can see they're quite different. And if you try to overlay them, you'll see that it matches much more closely with this image here.
But he went back into the left. But physics, okay, again, back into the left. Well, what would make him do that, okay? And this, what I'm saying, it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery, we're not forming Voltron here, okay? Take a balloon, blow it up, hold it, the balloon's out here, and throw it this way. You'll only get so far because it'll blow back at you. The amount of energy that this pressurized little unit here has, when it came out and it blew him back into the left. That's also why, and he had a lot of his skin still with the skull fragments on it. Okay, it went back like this and you see it flap over his head like that. And that one chunk, basically kind of like how you roll up a ball of duct tape, you try to throw it in the garbage can, but it gets stuck, and instead of going all the way, it goes, that kind of like that. It flipped the brain matter onto the trunk of the car, and that's what Jackie ran and grabbed his brain, because that's what human beings do. Oh my God, we got to put it back. He's gone already. But even in the movie Rambo, he's talking about at the end of the movie, yeah, it's like, we're going to drive this car all until the tires fell off, but I can't find your legs. I got pieces of you trying to put them back together. Rambo, Mac Visock, the baddest of the bad in the Vietnam War, and he's just trying to put his friend back together. Because this is human nature. It's what you do. You just grab for the brain and try to put it back. Bullet went in, back into the left. Not rocket science. All that energy from that round pushing this forward, which again, in that particular case, the school book depository probably wasn't the shot site. It was probably, you look at, Kennedy was kind of down, leaning over a little bit. Okay, here to the right, book depositories up there. But right back here, what was right back here? The jail, the prison, where all you have to do is have the right credentials. It's a government building. If you're a high up, FBI, CIA, NSA, you're going to tell, these prison guards are going to tell you what to do. The warden's going to tell you what to do. He'd probably be honored to have you there. And guys can walk around with guns as long as they get the right uniform. Nobody carried badges back then. You just walk around in the uniform. I had a guy do that. Not in that, but he had to go to this medical facility to try and get information on something. So he just bought a lab coat, walked in. The security guy goes, "Who are you?" He said, "Well, Bill told me I needed to go this way." "Oh, okay." He just walked right on by. Andor, the whole point of Andor, you can't imagine that somebody would just walk in and do that kind of thing. Now imagine if you're trained and if you've got the right equipment, right everything, and you open the window, because all the windows were open, they weren't supposed to be. We all seen JFK, direct shot from the back from the jail. Not discussing the Kennedy assassination. I'm just saying, for the sake of this argument here, you need to know this. So go back and watch the Zapruder tapes. All right, go to frame 313, and you'll see he's like this, and you see Jackie kind of like this with the crook of her arm. All right, frame 313 is the one where he gets hit, and you can see the blast coming. Now, frame 1311, take a piece of paper, cut it out, go like this, measure the space between the crook of her arm and his coat, okay? And then take a piece of paper, cut that piece of paper, go to frame 312, and look at that, okay? And when you see frame 313, when you, bam, back and to the left. So essentially what happens is a bullet comes in. All right, it's indisputable. There's autopsy photos, okay? Even Nancy Gray said there's 2 shots. It came from the front. So people are shooting twice simultaneously back in 1963. No. Now, possibly, but there was no 2 shooters. You didn't need it. But, all right, I'm going to move Bob closer here. Okay. Get him in the white. All right. I want you to see something. You know what? Right there. See how it lines up kind of with this? Okay. Hit with a bullet. So when you go and watch the Kennedy shot, it's a split second. Watch it, because somebody put it in slow-mo. Watch it in slow-mo. Watch it on 1.5 times fast. All right? Watch it in real time, and it's at the bottom of the screen, like right down here. So it's real hard to see. As a brooder, obviously, you know what's going to happen. But you can see it. You'll see just a little bit, kind of like your old man smacking you in the back of the head. I don't know if any of you watching this even have an old man. But yeah, you do something, the old man smacking you in the back. Not hard, but just have to work. Ow, okay, I won't do that again. You'll see a split right before he back into the left. Back into the left. Watch that. Watch that, because that's important for what I'm about to tell you with this Charlie Kirk scenario. Time is of the essence, because I need to get this out there, because you guys are just spinning your wheels. So, shot comes in, right? Right above his ear, approximately. All right, then what happens? Okay, and this is where I was going to show you a video of Chris Martinson from Peak Prosperity. Older guy, gray beard, PhD, showed all the protractions and everything, and he thinks there might be a shot that come from here. No, I'll show you where it came from. I'll tell you what happened. So it goes in here. Okay. Now, if you watch that in slow-mo, and again, I'll try to link all the videos. I'd like to actually show this to show what's happening. So you got here, and then you've got this wound right here on his neck, which everyone thinks is the entry wound. But everyone says, what? It's like a record, a broken record. Well, it looks like an exit wound. Because it is an exit wound. All right? You don't have all this magic, magic bullets doing this.
If you want to watch telly, you should watch Scooby-Doo. That show was so cool because every time there was a church with a ghoul or a ghost in a school, they looked beneath the mask, and what was inside? The janitor or the dude who ran the water slide. Because throughout history, every mystery ever solved has turned out to be not magic.
Now, that's the size. This itty bitty caliber. That's the size of your bullet. That's the size of your entry wound. Your exit wound, almost by definition. Almost by definition. is going to be bigger because it's got all that mass right in front of it, like a snow shovel that's got to push it out of the way. And if you got hollow points, like I showed you, that mushroom, you get even more tissue that you got to push away, right? So it goes in here, and you get a wound right here. Okay, if this is true, one of two things has to happen. Okay, isn't it miraculous how that works pretty well? Yet nobody did this. Nobody said, well, because they're all trying to make the physics work, trying to do this because they believe what they're told on this. Like, we can't trust the government. All of a sudden, now we got to trust the government. And Candace Owens said it wasn't a 30-06. So now that means Tyler Robinson's not the guy. So what else are they lying about? Or are they just incompetent? What's Hanlon's razor? Don't attribute to malice or be easily attributed to incompetence, mistakes, or whatnot. When you're in a pool, about that deep in the pool, okay? So say Bob here is there's the water line. You go into the water line, go like that really fast. What do you get? Whoosh. Well, what is that? You get bubbles. Well, why do you get bubbles? Okay? Because you're moving so fast. Now, water is very cohesive. It likes to stick together. Okay? It likes to, like, you got some, like, two little droplets or puddles, and they kind of go towards each other. And once they touch, boom, it merges into one big one, right? You know, a lot of liquids do that, but water is very cohesive. But you can move your hand fast enough to where the water essentially tears apart. Okay? Now, this leads into, it was on many channels, but Chris Matheson, the guy, the PhD, and now he shows about ballistics gel. Now, ballistics gel is like clear gel, kind of looks like clear soap, and it's a little bit bendy, but it kind of almost mimics human flesh. But you shoot it to see how far and how deep it goes into and what happens to the bullet. So when you have a high velocity round, especially one like the size of a 30-06, what happens is it enters the ballistics. You can watch these videos. You've probably seen it. It enters the gel, and if you watch it slow-mo, it creates this massive cavitation, massive air pocket. Okay? Then it collapses back in on itself, and usually what you see is like an explosion of bright light, and it kind of does it again. And then when it comes out again, it sort of spits out like, you know, like powdering a baby's butt, and it farts in your face, you know? So all the gas kind of escape out the hole that it's just made. So that wound cavitation is called hydrostatic shock, okay? Now, a lot of bullets do that, and it happens in like 1,000th of a second. So, like you barely can't see it. Just the ballistic gel does this. When you see that massive expansion, and when it comes back in on itself, a lot of guys say, and it's true, that there is some residual gunpowder, but that's not really what causes the explosion. There is, not that it stopped, sorry. There is a video, and I'll link it, and it's about, it was like a BBC, submarines for years have been wondering what this strange sound is at the bottom of the ocean. They finally figured out what caused it. And it was this, and it's called a pistol shrimp.
I don't think they even know what a pistol is.
I got your pistol right here. Where goes the ball?
Back here.
It's about that big, okay? And what this pistol shrimp does is it's got, like the fiddler crab, it's got a regular claw, it's got this big old claw. It cocks it back, and it basically has like a trigger like that. So when he wants to release it, it closes in, and it shoots out a bubble. Now, in the claw, there's an indentation, okay? And on this claw, there's a protuberance. So it's basically like having a clown nose. So you got the clown nose going into this hole almost meant for it. Well, the water displacement, kind of like when you go like that in a pool, it creates this air bubble and it shoots forward. But the air bubble that shoots forward to knock out the prey isn't really what does it. What happens is the bubble shoots forward, and as the bubble goes like this, like the cavitation in the ballistic shell, when it comes back, you'll see like a little explosion or like somebody lighting gunpowder, and it goes back again, it comes back. When the pistol shrimp hits that, the bubble comes out, and it's so cool when you see this. And the narrator is like, and when it collapses in on itself, you'll see that bright light. He said that surface area tension temporarily becomes hotter than the surface of the sun.
As the claw snaps shut, it fires a blast of bubbles. Incredibly, as the bubbles collapse, they momentarily reach the temperature of the sun. This implosion causes a shock wave that stuns.
And this is in the middle of the frickin' ocean. So this pistol shrimp goes, bam! And it becomes temporarily, water comes together, but it's temporarily hotter than the surface of the sun. And that, it's almost like a, like the pistol shrimp throws a bubble grenade, and then boom, when it collapses in on itself, it kills, it stuns the other shrimp, then he goes and he eats them. I don't know if it's still alive or not. Talk to Pete on that one. I don't care. So when a bullet comes in, you've got that massive hydrostatic shock, that massive cavitation. And in the video he did, he used a 300 blackout, which is smaller than a 30-06. And again, like anybody who knew anything knew this wasn't a 30-06. I mean, again, if they're trying to cover something up or whatever, like, how can you be this stupid? And in my other video, why would you use that gun? Oh, did I say this before? Yeah, the M98 never made a 30-06, and they had serial numbers from 1898 on. So there's no reason he really would have used that gun. All this is fishy. And then you've got an old gun on a new stock. Okay, why would you use that as a hand-me-down? That's like putting a spoiler in a 57 Chevy Bel Air right between the fins. Stupid. So, if this is the case, which it is, bullet comes into his head. Remember what I said about a head? It is pressurized. Because of this thing here, this skull, it is pressurized. It comes in here. Where is all the energy going to go? It's going to go into the left side of his body. Now, what you'll notice, and this is the same, this is why I said I'm not being disparaged to you, Matheson, or anybody else here who can't seem to get this. See, you guys are the Wozniaks, I'm the Jobs. Cool, let's work together, man. Goes in here, all that energy's got to go somewhere. You can see right here, start on the right side of his face. As the bullet enters here, that energy's going to start doing this. Start on the right side of his face, even his face starts cavitating. All right, you've got the back, which Ryan Mata, that's a Twitter video, but you'll see it. All right, going into, or the expansion coming out the back, all right, going out the front, and then his left side, especially his neck, really bulges on this side like goiter, and then you see the wound. That's why I say it's likely that it was just pressure, just like water in the pistol shrimp. It's moving so fast, it cavitates, it creates literally air out of nowhere. All right, that's how they, submarines, they create air out of nowhere and and they pump in water and whatnot. It creates air out of nowhere and it tears this tissue. Okay, so you'll also notice that you've got all this cavitation happening. Okay, where's the cavitation not happening? Yeah, right there on his right side. Why? Because it comes in from here, entry wound, all the force and power is going the exact opposite way. You don't get cavitation here and you get this injury, right? But I don't understand. How could you get all this cavitation? Okay. Actually, first, let me do this before I forget. Okay. Remember JFK? Back and to the left. Back and to the left. When you see that, first off, you see Charlie go like this. It goes like this, and then instantaneously the neck starts bulging, including the jaw, the right side of the jaw. Okay, and they kind of go back and forth between those. Now, the Ryan Mata film is from the side. Okay, that's where you see the cavitation from here. But you'll notice two things. Okay, now, anybody old enough, probably starting to get gray hair, probably need a prostate exam or mammogram. There's this game called Clay Fighters, and there's a Elvis takeoff, Fat Elvis, big hair. Hey, watch the hair, man. Hey, watch the hair, man. And his hair was actually an attack. Now, you'll see his head goes like this. And he's got this, his hair up here goes like this and comes down because he gets hit so hard. He goes like that, just like Kennedy. Like that. But his is from here, so, okay. Let's see. Close enough. Right? See, it's kind of level with the, you'll see his head. Not rocket science, not brain surgery. We're not forming Voltron here. You can watch at regular speed, you can watch it slow-mo. Okay, his head goes down because he's getting hit right here, but it's at an angle, so it doesn't necessarily knock him this way, which, by the way, which way did he fall? Oh, yeah, towards where the force was coming. Oh, well, rocket science. Comes in here, all right, and I lost my train of thought. You'll see his hair go like this, and that's when everything expands and explodes, and then you get the blood gushing out and he falls over. Okay, a couple things with this. So, what's his name? Chris Matheson was saying that he's so a neurologist, and when he gets hit, he goes like this. Now, I remember one of my hunting buddies telling me that he shot a deer in the neck, and what did it do? It reared up like this, and it fell over. When you get hit, and you get what's called decorticate posturing, not decerebrate posturing, that's another thing. That's severing the spinal column. That means he's got nothing. That means you're limp. You're basically dead. You cut off every single nerve impulse from your entire body going to your brain. Okay? So, if that would have happened, 1, he wouldn't have ever had a pulse. Okay? 2, he wouldn't have gone like this. He just would have gone like this and limp like a ragdoll and just flopped in his chair instead of falling over. When he gets hit like that, decorticate posturing. He said, I was talking with a neurologist. All right? The neurologist said, well, you only get that if you have damage to, severe damage to the red nucleus. Okay? So, what is the red nucleus? Okay, the red nucleus is an area in the brain. If you, right around there, okay, is your pituitary gland, your hormone master blaster. Every hormone is decided by your pituitary gland. All right around here, right there, in the middle of your brain, kind of pillowing, sandwiching, Oreo cooking your pituitary gland, a little bit higher. But that's your red nucleus, which is next to your cerebellum, which basically all your motor control is through your cerebellum. I only know that because we watched it, couldn't see it anymore. Pete had find you. But they show it. We did surgery on this cat's cerebellum, and basically the cat had no motor function. So essentially, that's why everything's right there in that part of your brainstem, right here, right inside, because that doesn't ever want to get damaged. You don't want to mess with that. You can't move. You can't find food. You can't do anything, right? So essentially, he says he would have had to get hit in the red nucleus. And they're saying, well, how could it come into here, first at a downward angle, shatter all his vertebrae, and then damage his red nucleus? If it would have gone here, even the expansion explosion, even if it was right here in the neck and not by the spine, would have done some pretty severe damage. Okay? But yet it's going to go up into the red nucleus? No. But you know what does? A shot to the freaking head right through the red nucleus. How are you guys missing this stuff? Well, it's got to be this. They said, no. Look with your eyes. What is it telling you? Watch. It's not going to be through here. What could hit the red nucleus? Oh, a shot right through here. Well, that makes perfect sense. Maybe we should start looking at this. I mean, even if they said all that stuff, I'd have been, well, that's the first thing I'd look at. Once the guy pointed that out, the Marine who talked to Range Day Bro, I'm like, well, that's it. So now I'm just showing you how all these pieces of evidence, all right, linked to this being the actual shot. Okay? But you say to yourself, well, what about that cavitation? Okay, cavitating all through here, his face, massively through here because it's going in the direction, and it always goes towards wherever the energy is, right? Energy goes where the bullet's going. Okay? What's missing here? Actually, not what's missing, what's here in place of something missing. We as humans, the spinal column has got to go somewhere to go down into our bodies and be protected by the vertebrae, which were shattered, right? All right, there's a hole. There's a hole here. The hole is called the foramen magnum, all right, which is Latin for giant hole, aka your mom. But the foramen magnum here, okay, is a hole. All right. Anybody who knows anything about plumbing, pressure, water, electricity? What is it? Electricity goes for what? The path of least resistance. Water, you hold water in the tank, it'll always start leaking. Where? where there's a hole. Oh, a hole? So if I got a lot of pressure, just like the JFK, which caused the back and to the left, you get a shot right here. It hits the red nucleus, okay, obliterates the brain, all this stuff, anything below it, probably inside it too. And another thing I forgot to mention, okay, the mob especially used to use 22 long rifle, which you kill squirrels with, the little, you know, they had a name for it. It was like the scrambler, the brain scrambler, because it would go in, it'd bounce around and scramble your brains, okay, wouldn't leave an exit wound, and best of all, when it came to the mob, so number one, you get shot, all right, you kill your target, all right, and if you had a revolver or picked up your brass, all right, there's no ballistics they could tie you to, and because of the actual bullet bouncing around, it gets destroyed. It flakes off. It's got flecks everywhere. So essentially, you can't ballistically check it against the gun that was fired because the striations are gone. It's almost a perfect weapon, which, when they said it wasn't a 30-06, there was fragments in there, I said, here's another thing. You know what? You know what's going to happen? They're going to say, well, we don't exactly know what caliber it is because it was damaged. And actually, I'll believe them if they say that because, well, isn't that convenient? Because now they can't match it to a gun, but they don't need to match it to a gun because it's not a 30-06, which is what they had of Tyler Robinson, which this is also why they didn't show you the shot before they showed you running, because he probably didn't take a shot. He was either a patsy or he was lining up and, oh my God, somebody got to him. I better get away. You know, I mean, you probably, but if I was him, I'd be like, okay, I was going to try to shoot him in the leg, you know, just let him know he could do it. I wasn't really going to kill him because they'd be looking at me. This whole thing is set up. This is a professional hit, but, which we'll get into at a different time with all that stuff. But all that pressure goes down the foramen magnum, causing what? Oh, cavitation, including the explosion here, which I'm guessing, again, it could be a fragment, like a hydroshock bullet, one of the pieces coming off and actually shooting out there. Again, I really don't think, especially if they say there's one here by his T1 vertebrae, I really think that there's no bullet in the ground. But I'd take a metal detector and check. What would Ronald Reagan say? Trust but verify, right? Well, you're not trusting any of the things. I'm not trusting anything these guys are saying. You guys are, because you've never been screwed by the government bad enough, I guess. But everything that they're telling you, again, it's either negligence, ignorance, or if this is malice. They're trying to cover up something. But the cavitation happens, okay? And he's got the arterial spray, right, from this wound. But there was no blood at the scene. There was so little blood. None of these guys have blood on their hands. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, Bob. Oh, Marie. It makes perfect sense. Why? Well, what goes up must come down. All right, Newton's law of motion. Okay, you've got a cavitation in here. You've got all this tissue and energy being blown right down the foramen magnum into this chest cavity. On one of the videos, he said his heart tissue was basically obliterated. Because again, this is a pressurized system too. So is this. All right, I was on dialysis. Okay, your peritoneal dialysis. So inside here, you've got all your guts, and it's in your peritoneum. So basically, it's a sterile sac. Like your urine is actually sterile, unless you got an infection, obviously, because everything in this here, your body's like, nothing's getting in. This place stays clean because we don't want to deal with that. That's why your only tissue membranes at the outside world are here, 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 here. That's it. Your body's very well designed. And in this is your lungs. And you remember the glass in biology class in high school where they got the thing with the two balloons and you pull down on the stretchy balloon and the lungs fill up because it's just a pressure differentiation. So, if anything, boom, blasted the hell out of his lungs, probably damaged his heart, okay? But there was no arterial spray. Well, could be no arterial spray because he didn't hit the carotid. Well, then what's all that blood? What goes up must come down, or well, what goes down must come up in this case. It looked like what? Like somebody vomiting. You got all this damaged tissue. Falls over in the direction of the bullet. Okay, and if you've ever watched the movie Lucky Number 11 with Josh Hartnett, I think we're going to try to link that down. There's a scene where he takes out somebody, all right, to get back at somebody else and start this kissing contest, which you'll find out later why. But there's a scene, and it's a 19-second clip where he's like this, right? He's on the roof of a building, but it's actually just one of those walkway roofs, and then the rest of the building there. He's sitting with a sniper rifle like this, right in the corner. He sees the guy walk out, bam! And they see his bodyguard go like this with a gun. Before he realizes anything, he's hidden. It's here. Even you can see somebody doing this. He's black gun, black outfit. That's it. That's all the time it takes. You know, they say somebody's got a knife and at 21 feet. They've done numerous studies on this. All right, an assailant can bridge that gap at 21 feet with a knife before most people can draw their weapon. Okay, you know, I went back, but that's how fast it can happen. Boom, there you go. Takes it apart, puts it in something, lifts up a flower thing, puts it in there, whatever, walks out. Not that hard, especially if these guys are pros, which I guarantee they were. And I guarantee you, the camera will not be working there. And, well, who scanned to open that door at that exact moment? Who was the last person to open the door before Charlie Kirk? Oh, that wasn't working. I had technical difficulties that day. How convenient. The head is intact. No kidding. So you see on the target right there, it hits just below the target. You see that little hole that pops up, okay, with the two little pieces of skull. Now, if you look on the front view on the left-hand side, you can tell where the bullet went in, because as the bullets go in, all right, the force, equal and opposite reaction, kind of pushes out. So you can kind of tell exactly where the bullet went in on the front view on the left-hand side. But you can also see the hole that was created. Now look at the skull. It shatters into numerous pieces, and the left eye, kind of like mine. Hey, it's a Illuminati thing, left eye. The left eye, or unless it's Lisa Left Eye Lopez before she got hit by that bus. So the eye, because of the force, the blood goes there. All right. So you can see everything start to shatter. You can see on the side view the face actually move forward, but it's basically shattering it into a bunch of pieces. Now again, there's no skin and hair to keep the stuff intact. So we go to so this is 0, 1, 2. So in the second frame, now you notice everything's expanding. In this one, it actually looks like it's collapsing in on itself, just like with the gel and just like with the pistol shrimp and the air bubble that collapsed in on itself, right? So you got this boom, okay, and then this collapse again. You can see it shooting up and out to the sides. Now, it could also just be a continuation, but at this point, it's hitting the bottom, all right? Forces are coming back in on itself. Now, if there's any ballistics experts that want to challenge me on this and explain what's really going on, or if I'm mistaken, have at it. I'd love to hear it. That's not as important as just the fact of the shot and with the cavitation. That's the big thing. Now you can also see that on the side view, all right, it's split out more, and you can tell that it's kind of pushing everything this way. Yet in that same frame, everything's kind of collapsing in on itself, and you see this, right? And also look at the neck. You start to see a little bit of everything starting to push down into the neck. And also on the front view, you'll see that the jaw, okay, it's coming out like this where the bullet went in, and the cavitation of that jaw is starting because that's where the bullet's entering. So it's going to go and flow this way, just like it did with Charlie Kirk. All right, we'll look at the 1, 2, 3 frame, and now you also notice that it looks like those trolls, you know, people using bingo that were big in the 90s. It's starting to shoot up because anything that comes down here is now starting to bounce off. But you'll also look, and that's that frame that I showed you before. That's where the cavitation in the neck starts. So even though there's no foramen magnum, that energy is still going down in here. And if you look at the side shot, cavitation, you can kind of see it start to go down into the, and of course everything's just getting wrecked, the whole face. And now you can also see on this shot that everything's starting to move this way because of the force of the bullet. So this is the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth frame, okay, and you notice that the liquid in the head is starting to, instead of going this way, it's going kind of the opposite. It's going straight up, but a little bit more towards the right side, which is where the bullet came from. Equal and opposite reaction. So it's meeting resistance, but also there's that collapse of the initial, right, as I'm dinging my table here, but, and you see the face on the side shot is even leaning this way, like both shots, but really on the side shot leaning this way. But again, 1, 2, 3, 4, look at that cavitation. You can see it move throughout the body, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 5, you see everything's starting to break apart. You see the face somehow stayed intact, and it stayed intact up until the jaw. But if you let it go, it just, stuff drips down, and actually just literally kind of fell apart. So when I was digging in for the bullet, that wound up staying in the skull right there, and you saw it, the picture of it that I put on the board. So the bullet stays in the skull, which is the important part, which means there's no pass-through. Now, if that round were a full metal jacket round, I almost guarantee there'd be a pass-through. Although, when we shot through the goat's head, okay, that little white block here, basically just to keep everything steady, there's also one in the back, the white block, it hit that white block and did stop. But that's technically the thickness of skull or human bone. But it still went through and then landed right in the gel, and that's where you got this. So, but where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, and where is the direction of all the blood going? Technically towards, it's all splashing against where the bullet's coming from. So there's that equal and opposite reaction. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see that cavitation between 5 and 6 in the neck on the side shot. All right, you can also start. Look at the front. Look at the cavitation. Boop, boop. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now everything's starting to just shatter. But you'll still notice that the right-hand side where the bullet came from, that's where the majority of the blood is. So there's equal and opposite reactions happening. Then you'll also see that the right shoulder is kind of coming up off the ground. So then this is 8, and that's 9. But you'll see there's the cavitation, frame 3, I think. 1, 2, 3. A little bit still, but everything's starting to come back up. But that is what you saw. Skull fragments flying everywhere. Look at the cavitation. You're going to see Wile E. Coyote here. Really? So the interesting thing about this, and I didn't realize this until I started breaking it down,
But here's 0. Here's where nothing is happening. So Mr. Wile E. Coyote, interestingly, has water on his mouth. I just noticed it. Maybe he was digging into something, someone got him. It looked to me like somebody shot him and he either ran or they dumped him on the side of the road because the pelt was no good. But here, this is 0, this is 1. See that that very, very small difference? That's basically the bullet must have just entered, because you see the expansion just start. And of course, where does the expansion start? The side where the bullet is, and then moves just like all the other examples, okay? But this is 0, this is 1, this is frame 2. Obviously, a lot of damage. You can see everything just kind of caving in and moving out at the same time. The jaw opening up, but yet 1, 2, 3. We're at the third frame. That brick is cracked. Completely cracked all the way through. And you go further, more crack, and then that's it. That's all I got for that. But you see the skull stays intact, everything stays intact, the energy goes down the foramen magnum, all right, and right down the brick. All right, there's no exit wound. I got another video, it's the aftermath. I'll show you that just to show you that no exit wound. There's no exit wound on the left side of the coyote's face. Everything went down. That broke the brick. Just like the dim mock. Broke that brick. So. Everything I'm about to lay out is in my previous videos, and you can also find other videos on the internet that will show you from multiple angles the exact same thing. Here it is. The truncated version. Again, Charlie Kirk was sniped from the roof of the Tours Building to his right. Just above the right ear, went through the red nucleus, which caused the instantaneous decorticate posturing. The smaller but faster cartridge that was used, as it was designed to, had a massive amount of terminal ballistics energy upon impact. But not enough momentum to exit the skull, unlike JFK, as once again is presented in great detail in my first video. The estimated 31-degree angle of the shot likely added to this phenomenon. Right? It wasn't going to go through because it went this way, and it still had a lot of tissue to go through and bone, and they crushed that. So either the explosive pressure from the bullet's energy or the bullet itself went through the skull and down the neck, crushing the C2 through C6 vertebrae and landing near the T1 vertebrae. Again, addressed in great detail in my first video. Side note, the bullet's path does not need to match the supposed report given by the hospital's OR doctor / surgeon / medical team for this analysis to work. But this puzzle piece certainly fits cleanly into this particular puzzle. The energy from the impact, like the Hemi engine combustion chamber addressed in 2 previous videos, had nowhere to go except down the foramen magnum, as proven in my 3rd video with the coyote. Causing hydrostatic shock cavitation into his chest cavity. This event is corroborated with both ballistics gel and a real-world zoological evolutionary example illustrated by the pistol shrimp. All pressure, like water, like electricity, follows the path of least resistance. Ergo, the pressure, like a popped balloon, escapes through the head and chest cavity's weakest point, which, just like Chris Martenson said, also just happens to be the softest area on the human body, the neck, causing a massive bubble and subsequent tear in the skin of the neck on Charlie's left side, opposite the bullet's impact point, following the bullet's trajectory. Again, this is rudimentary. A 3rd grader could figure this out. Not funny, it's funny, bro.
The rebound collapse is presented in my first video with the ballistics gel and the pistol shrimp as real-world examples, unlike every other sleuth that you watch, caused the damaged tissue to exit the neck wound. Entrance, energy goes down the foramen magnum, the cavitation happens. As it collapses back in on itself, the cavitation is what happened to burst it. As it collapses back in on itself, kaboom, you get another, not as powerful, probably about 70% less, another energy smack. And that's when you get the gel, ballistic gel coming through the pistol shrimp, causing the temperature of the sun. And then that rebound is what squirts the damaged tissue in his chest cavity out. One shot. He was killed instantaneously, or at least beyond any sort of repair that modern medicine can ameliorate. If he had a pulse, it was weak at best, but the blood we all saw was destroyed internal tissue exiting the neck, not a severed artery. Hence, no arterial spray, and little to no blood on his security team persons. Such an injury is not able to be repaired or even triaged by any medical team outside of an operating room. Realistically, even if he was on the operating table when this trauma occurred, it likely would not have made any difference, just like the supposed report given by the hospital's OR doctor / surgeon / medical team that afternoon. Therefore, likely seeing there was no first aid able to be rendered, assuming this wasn't all a psyop show by the people involved, they transported him to the hospital, albeit in vain. That is what happened, as my first 3 videos clearly illustrate, and that my 4th video proves, with the corroboration independently, has no idea I even exist, with Audio Freak's sound analysis that puts the shooter at the exact spot on that roof where I say, from analyzing it forensically and ballistically, say the shot came from. And also the second video shows on video the person, the shooter, up on the roof and taking the shot at the exact moment, or being visible at the exact moment that the shot was taken. I implore you to watch my videos, and unless your family tree does not branch, you will finally understand what happened to this brilliant young man. I'm serious. You watch 1, 2, 3, and then 4, just so you can see the corroborative proof. You'll understand what happened. And if you don't, then I would suggest having Planned Parenthood's number on speed dial. Audio Freak's findings by itself is absolutely compelling in itself, because it at least points to a spot where a potential shooter could be. Right? It doesn't point to a tree. It doesn't point to where people were standing. It points to a high, out of the line of sight for most everyone at that event roof, where my analysis, both logically and ballistically and forensically, say the shot came from. All this matches. If he independently said it came from here, it's like, okay, well, you said it came from here, but I still got the evidence that says here. I'm going to go by my evidence because I have evidence of what I see on video versus sound. But he has no idea I even exist, and he pinpointed it at the exact point where I said it ballistically, forensically, and the second video shows exactly that shooter going, something come up and going back down the exact moment of the shot.
Brings a pretty good audience. Brings a pretty good audience.